was.
I'm basically pretty shy, so I find the whole thing nightmarish. But I think what happens is you become dehumanized, and the truth pays an enormous price.
Making music made him famous, but it was making headlines that characterised Michael Hutchence's final years. The vitriol began when he did the unthinkable, dumping the very beautiful supermodel Helena Christensen for the very controversial wife of Sir Bob Geldof. Suddenly, Hutchence was cast by the British tabloids as sinner to Geldof's saint.
I think when he and Paula got together, it was Fleet Street's turn to kind of hit back a little, and they did. And I know that he was really hurt by some of that stuff.
As the pressure escalated, so did tempers.
The rock star Michael Hutchence has been fined $825 for attacking a British newspaper photographer, admitting that he knocked the photographer to the ground.
But the most bitter battles were waged not against the press, but against Bob Geldof in the courts. Hutchence standing by Paula Yates as she and her former husband fought for custody of their 3 daughters.
Out of the entrance, or one will be going with me.
Yes, that's been really quite bitter, that which is very sad. I don't think that's been helped, though, by the British press. I think that they felt they had to defend Bob, and it became very vicious and nasty. And then, that whole supposed drug bust at the house, which was then baseless in the end. And it really affected Michael and Paula,
Two worlds collided, and they could never, ever tear us apart.
In fact, Michael Hutchence had spoken to Channel 9's entertainment reporter, Richard Wilkins, of moving to Australia with Paula Yates and all the children to escape the spotlight.
Luckily, in places like Australia, thank God, it's actually been really good here, and people are actually fairly balanced. And they don't, there's a bullying mentality in England, and a very misogynistic one. That's scary.
So I think they really saw this as a bit of a new start for them out here. And I'm sure it was disappointing when it became apparent that that wasn't going to be as easy to do as they may have wished.
Bob Geldof stymied plans to shift the whole family when he launched court proceedings to get custody of his 3 children. Still, the last time Molly Meldrum saw Michael Hutchence, just 8 weeks ago, he was revelling in his own role as father of the daughter he had with Paula Yates.
I've never seen you so happy, and he really was happy. And the very proud father was parading, his little daughter around, and he agreed. I mean, he said he's never been as happy,
Think of a distance, think of a miles.
And apparently happy enough too when these pictures were shot just 3 days ago for an interview Richard Wilkins had scheduled with him today.
I can't believe that this was something premeditated.
Whatever.
So when I start the sax, it's 6 saxes.
For God's sake.
You can see that he's laughing and joking and smiling. This is not a guy who's planning on doing anything as radical as what occurred.
In the name of love, yeah, it's all right a big town.
Something obviously tripped him up in the early hours of Saturday morning, and that was that.
Now there are unconfirmed reports of a heated telephone conversation between Hutchence and Geldof in the early hours of Saturday morning, overheard by a guest in the next room. And speculation maybe that was the something that tripped him up.
With breakups of marriages, and there's children involved, etc., it can become quite nasty, And in fact, that did become quite nasty.
So nasty, in fact, Hutchence told a reporter that Sir Bob Geldof offered him more than $1 million to leave Paula Yates.
There were many comments made about Michael, and then the press started their own frenzy and were making up, stories that were just absurd, And, I mean, that's, as I said, it's a horrifying thing for someone to have to go through that,
Baby, I love you so.
Whether these were the pressures that finally drove Michael Hutchence to take his life, we may never know. All that's certain for now is that just as in life, his death is being played out in the headlines.